very first baby step that people need to take. Subtract crypto and tokens out of their mind.
The space would move forward when we have more smart people coming in, building products or solving problems. Then only we can go ahead.
Sell the design first and then sell the product.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Nalikes Podcast. I'm Talha Asif, your host, and each episode we bring you insightful conversations with the founders and builders who are shaping the future of Web3. Our goal here is to educate and inspire the founders who are building in Web3. Make sure you watch till the end as you learn practical and actionable steps that you can apply to your startups today. Today's guest is Mujtaba. Mujtaba is the co-founder of BlockApex, which is one of the leading security and development firm in the Web3 space. Thank you so much for coming on, Mujtaba. How are you?
But thank you for having me, Kala. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm pretty excited about this because we've been connected for I think 2 years now.
Yeah, more
I
than
think
two
we met
years.
we met in Leap. Yeah. So ever since then we have worked together on few things, and I've always learned from you, especially. So
Thank you.
my goal here is to pick your brain and extract as much information from you as possible that is practicable for other founders that they can apply. But before we jump into that, I want to learn more about your background because that's very important. That's something that other people can resonate with. So tell us, who was Mujtaba before Web3, and then how did you end up in Web3?
All right. So let's just dive into it, Kala. Starting off, I have a very humble background. My father used to work in real estate and had good luck working in that sector. But back in 2013, he fell really sick, and due to his deteriorating health, at the time I was 15, we had to jump in, specifically me because I'm the only child. I had to jump in and start working on my own, finding small gigs, some tasks just to get me a quick dollar. And you know what? When I reflect back, and this was a question I answered an year ago in a podcast, that really made me reflect who was Mujtaba, uh, uh, like back in my childhood, because you truly become what you were in your childhood because of your experiences, right? So I used to be that guy in the school who used to sell handmade yo-yos from the limited resources I had in the area that I used to reside in. So it was a furniture market, and I just got silicone strings and some bottle caps, flatted them, made a good yo-yo out of it, and started selling it. And then eventually called my parents um, because I was doing business when I was in fourth standard. So that was huge. But with time, I didn't stop. Up to this date, before getting into Web3 in 2019, I had three startups of my own, one in the hospitality industry. Then I started my own event management company. And the last one was a BPO service. We used to like client service for Medicare and health campaigns. So that's a bit about me. But Mustafa has been really someone who wants to create a name for himself and create an impact in the society. May
Amazing.
it be through his, yeah, sure.
No, please continue.
No, no. Okay. So, in terms of my professional experience, apart from these three startups that I did, I have been affiliated with the fintech sector. And before that, I have worked with a renowned name in Pakistan in the edtech sector. The areas of expertise that I hold are majority either product innovation or client acquisition. I'm sort of like a translator in between.
Yeah, that's a deadly combination if you can sell and build.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
amazing. So I want to touch more on that. You mentioned that you have been doing, you started doing some sort of business when you were in fourth grade. So do you think this entrepreneurial thing was something that you had since childhood, and is something that helps founders that are that have that entrepreneurial mindset since the very beginning? That help you achieve success in the things that you did in the past and you're doing now?
Yes, definitely. It really boils down to one thing. If from early childhood you've been uh, told value of money time to time again, you feel money is something that's hard to earn. But like I said, my father was in real estate. He used to do good. So before his health started deteriorating, we were doing very well financially. So I've seen a lot of money coming in and out of my life. And that is one reason I was really never afraid of money, or money was not such a big thing for me. So eventually, when I started making a dent for myself and money started flowing in, I understood, sir, that this is not something that I want to keep doing for the rest of my life. So and you do hear entrepreneurs saying this later down in their journey, but this is something that I realized early down in my life, that money is a byproduct. Eventually, if you're building something that people, and this is something I always tend to say, that I want to give people an experience, may it be a handmade yo-yo or some cross-border remittance application.
Wow, that's very nice.
That's
One
what.
thing that I can resonate with you is you mentioned that your father got sick and then you had to come in to support the family. Something similar happened in my case. My parents lost their job and I had to pay the rent, so I started working when 16. So for me, it was pain that drove me. Do you think it was pain in your case as well? And uh, is it something that can help other founders as well? What role does pain play?
Pain, now this is a very subjective feeling. Pain, it might make you weak, or it might develop a taste for itself, and you start enjoying it. So that's more has to do with more persistence and resistance that your body develops with time. For me, pain came in with also a support for me to connect with my mother, and she really stood there. Even though the best part is she hasn't even graduated from school. However, and this is one thing that has helped me be a good translator, is as long as I can make my mom understand what I'm working on, and she can, in her whatever understanding, she can give me her feedback, that really helps me like clear out my vision. So I'm just knocking at her. Later down the night, she doesn't even use Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp. She doesn't even use the financial application. I'm just telling her things, and she's throwing me with naive ideas that do make sense. So later down, currently in 2024, I'm of the opinion that unless my mother starts using Web3, I'm not going to stop her.
Did you read this book, The Mom's Test?
I know I haven't.
It's a book. It's a really good book you should read about. It's basically then how can founders find product market fit, and it's something
Okay,
similar where if your mom can
right.
understand what you're building, it's good. Very amazing. I have a similar story. So when someone asks my mother what your son does, she says he builds websites. So that's an
My,
oversimplification.
yeah, my mother says crypto, and I tell her not to, because you never know while the enforcements might jump in. So I tell her, don't
Yeah,
tell them anything. Just tell them he's in sales. That's it.
yeah.
That's
That's a much
the
better
simpler
explanation.
it gets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. So your journey has been more of an entrepreneurial thing. You started young, you had pain, and then you achieved success. Fast forward, what made you jump in Web3? And what, like, I want to like, what was that moment you're like, okay, this is something big? Because everyone that I bring on this podcast or everyone in my network has this aha moment. Okay, this makes sense,
Uh-huh.
right? So what was that aha moment for you in for Web3?
Yeah. So the last startup that I did on my own before BlockApex came into being, we were in the BPO services, and my
What's
clients were.
BPO? What's BPO?
It's business processing outsourcing. So
Mm-hmm.
they outsource you the client servicing, because in terms of human resources, they're cheaper in Pakistan. So all you need to do is service clients, tell them, guide them through the procedures of any XYZ product. So we had a few campaigns on board of certain tangible products, and we used to guide the customers about how to use it, how to order it, and XYZ. And I had a team of around 25. We were earning good. But at that time, my exposure to Web3, I was a consumer of Web3, but I wasn't really aware that this is called Web3. Back in the time, that was in 2018, we used to receive our payment in crypto, that is the US dollars, USDT, and then I used to cash it out and then disperse all my expenses, etc. The accounting was a pain itself, but that was something that I was really used to. Then COVID hit. We moved our operations to a certain location that was not known by the law enforcement because you're not allowed to run an office during COVID 19. And eventually things got so stricken that I had to shut it down. During that time, back in 2018-19, both, one of my friends had a startup that he was working on. It was relatively new and small, and he used to always chime in and tell me, Mujtaba, why don't you join me and lead my business team? I know you can do sales. And this was the time when we heard about, honestly, uh, Bitcoin was only known for being popular at the Silk Road, right? Um, and being used for dark web trades, marketplaces. Then this was the time when I'm talking about 2018 peak, when the crypto winters were in place and everyone was losing their investments. So I was a very anti-crypto guy who used to tell everyone that this is a scam, don't go for it. USDT is somewhat stable unless somebody likes pull that too. But apart from that, it's just a waste of time and money. Don't get into it. Then we all went through the empty box hack, and hacks were also at the peak at that time. So I realized, no, this is something I never want to go to. But eventually, I joined a startup in 2019, which is a very renowned name in Pakistan, and started working for a product of theirs that was in the make. And my goal was on the product innovation side. During that time, I was reporting to people thrice my age, and their understanding, even though they were trying to build a tech product, their understanding of users' consumerism was horrible. And during that time, that friend of mine was really pushing me. So what he said was, I am more of a risk taker. I love to do stuff that puts me really on the edge. So he said, okay, bro, let's do one thing. I'll suggest you 2 3 resources. You go through that, put in a good time. If so, I wasn't really enjoying my time at the current company I was working in. He said, put your time. If you enjoy it, then we can join it. So I read about the first no-brainer that anyone suggests. Did I lose you? I'm sorry. Okay.
No, that's
So the no-brainer book that everyone suggests is the Bitcoin white paper. I went through it. It was a lot of philosophical battle and something that I was conditioned to be in. So it was something out of the odd. I went through that. Then after around 2 weeks, because I was working and reading that at the same time, I was recommended reading about mastering Ethereum. So this is where the analogy of Ethereum working as a world computer, and sort of like storage, CPUs, arbitrary logics being implemented on this world computer and getting things done. That did make sense. Um, so it was during that time where I felt like this does make sense to me, but am I really up for Web3? It's something that I'm not used to. So he once I read up about it, I was waiting for a moment of aha moment, or the moment that you described. That is where Facebook launched Libra back in 2019,
yeah,
and it was supposed to be a global stablecoin, right? And then I realized, because we don't have opinions of our own. If you could relate to it, we have
yeah.
shared opinions of people, thought leaders that are working the space, and us looking up to Facebook being a unicorn and a hell of a company, leading the entire Web2 narrative. I realized that they're getting into Web3. This is something real, and this is about to create the change. However, they weren't successful in it, and that was the final push for me to get into Web3, because I had gotten the validation that I needed. So I joined a service-based company. They were working in product development, research, R&D, basically. At that time, MEB's DeFi was popular, and that's how Mujtaba ended in Web3.
Amazing, amazing. There's a lot of value to unpack. I want to start with the BPO. It was just like mainly outsourcing people or services to
Yeah.
people in the West, because like you mentioned that there's a lot of good talent at an affordable price. I wouldn't call it cheap because I too am from Pakistan, so I would call it
Hmm.
affordable. And again, I'm very well familiar. But for those of the people that are watching that don't know that they can tap into this market, can you briefly explain how does this work, and why should people do that? Like, let's say if someone is based in North America and they can hire people there, but they can get better talent at a better price in this part of the world. Just explain how does that work? Because I'm well familiar, but I want the audience to know how does that work.
Hmm. So if we talk about hiring people from a geography or a country that is a third world country or in currently a developing nation, it's not developed, you might find resources that are cheap. And I usually call this model the model of arbitrage, right?
Arbitrage.
So it's
Iman
basically
Gadzhi called
arbitrage.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hire someone from a cheap place who have low living costs, and then you place them in places where their expertise might be used. This arbitrage is what drives the really service industry. But with time, I've realized that we are going towards an era of resource globalization, where the disparity in the quality of resources is with time lowering down. However, the disparity in their payouts is increasing with time. Okay. So, if you ask me 5 or 10 years ago, would this model have been good for somebody working with regions such as Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Vietnam? We all thought of these names. I'd be against this thought because when you talk about these resources being trained in such an underdeveloped region where they don't have access to such academia, I would say their knowledge or their learnings would inherently affect the quality of work. But with the era that we're living in, either the guy lives in a village that has a stable internet connection or in the bustling streets of New York. I think their knowledge base would be equally same. The only thing that lacks is the mindset, which after having a lot of international exposure, I've realized that the only difference between the resources here in Pakistan or the southeastern region versus the ones that are there in the West, the Wild West. It's just they don't understand the consumption behavior. If my developer or if my client customer support guy understands how do people behave and consume products, services there in the West, I would say the difference would be negligible. And for this very reason, whereas the cost of hiring them is obviously different, right? So this way, I can say that any product builder entrepreneur trying to hire in Pakistan, it's a no-brainer for him in 2024. 10 years, a decade ago, maybe it wasn't a feasible decision, but now yes.
Yeah. So the takeaway for founders, because we're focusing on the Web3 founders, that they want to build crypto products, they should, and if they want to build fast and validate their idea, Pakistan should be their go-to source because they can experiment fast, and if it works, they can scale it from there. Amazing. The second thing that you mentioned is that you got in because you saw Facebook took an action, right? Uh, now there might be many founders who might be sitting at the sidelines, or again, who are skeptical, who think crypto is a scam. What do you advise? Because my advice normally these people are, okay, have an open mind, see what the technology is, because there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of scam, but the technology, the core technology, right, which is blockchain, is valuable. So for you, it was these big companies taking time, but uh, what should be the framework for someone to analyze, like, is this something I should go and build in? Because they're founders, right, who might have had success in web 2. Now they're, because again, okay, my thought process is that the space would move forward when we have more smart people coming in, building products or solving problems. Then only we can go ahead, because there's this group of people, right, who are purely speculative. We invest in these coins, the coin would go up. That's not how you'll drive more people in. That's how you will remove people, because once people get, their liquidity finished, they move out. From my perspective, and I think what you are doing and what we are doing is, I don't think as we are doing services to make money. I think we are working for a greater cause, which is onboarding the masses, right, by helping non-technical people build their ideas. So what framework should these people use to get into this space?
All right. So I think the very first baby step that people need to take is subtract crypto and tokens out of their mind. That's the first and foremost thing they're supposed to do. Secondly, understand what freedom of speech means. So it always boils down to how we express ourselves in the next era of internet. We've seen I'm pretty much sure your previous guests might have covered the aspect of Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, owning. That's all aside. What is truly that your current customer base or your business can benefit from when you talk about blockchain? So it's just not capital efficiency through crypto. It's also immutability. If I always tell these to the founders that I'm on a call with, you can't eat ice cream with ketchup because uh, each month I take more than 40 to 50 calls with different founders. And some of their ideas are so absurd. They're just trying to fit in tokens into their business model just to go to a healthy ICO, IDO, and then slowly vanish. So we're like, we don't do it here, even though we're from Pakistan and you've heard all sorts of things about us. This is not how the space works. So, being really aware, because the space demands the consumer to be well aware of what they're consuming. May it be a swap aggregator, may it be a wallet or a lending borrowing protocol. They need to be well aware of it. So, if you're trying to build on Web3, you need to know your numbers right and also your product offering because um, uh, when you compare open source systems with closed loop systems, crypto aside, blockchain-based products are very closed source, like closed loop. So you constantly get to tune around with the parameters to basically engineer how your consumers interact with the product. I'd say 90 to 95% of the products that are currently in the market, if you think they've cracked their model and they know that they're what they're doing, I'm sorry to tell you, my friend, but you're mistaken about it. Everyone in this space is experimenting. If I tell
Yeah.
you Curve Protocol, the renowned Curve Protocol, they have 265 forks of
Wow.
Curve code base only. Now, this doesn't mean that they came up with something with really radical on top of Curve and they started it. They just made one more tweak and saw how the market reciprocates to it. So I just keep people who are really like backing off from Web3, thinking as if it's something, a huge shift into their current tech stack. I keep telling them that everyone who's a serial entrepreneur, majority of the clients that I work with are not first time founders. They have worked in Web2, they have created an impact, and now they want to leverage Web3 to make use of the properties and nature that it inherits in their products and they benefit from it. So, first, understand what it gives. Don't try to force in crypto into it or tokens. And three, you have just one shot at it. Now, this is what really I love about platforms that open markets. That once you launch a product and it horribly fails, now the entire community knows that who launched the product and how it fails. So the next time you try to launch that product, people are not going to come after you. So the first time you're launching it, make sure your tokenomics is on spot, your system is well designed, your smart contracts do not have that vulnerability in themselves because one hack and you're done, and then you're good to go. So it needs to be well planned and you need to have all those parameters in your hand so that when you fine tune them, you can give that experience to your consumers rather than just throwing them in the fire and getting rid of all their funds. So as simple as that.
So if we were to summarize, it's basically come in with an open mind, separate the core technology apart from the coins, charts, and
Yeah.
tokenomics. Then don't try to force Web3 into something. Actually, figure out what problem I'm trying to solve, and
Hmm.
can this technology help me do that? And once you have figured that
Yeah.
out, then you basically go in. But the point that you're stressing on is that when you do decide to launch, make sure you're doing the right way, because if you do it wrong, it will hurt your reputation. Because again, Web3 is very small. I have two questions on top of this. One is ideation, right? It's like when you come up with an idea. So now, so far, because one of my goal here from this podcast is helping people figure out how to ideate, because I have worked with founders, and I'm pretty sure you have worked with founders who are very delusional about their ideas. They're like, this is
Yeah.
going to change the world, right? Because first time founders focus on the idea and the product. Second time founders focus on distribution, right? How I'm going to sell this. So is so far the framework that I have created based on the previous podcast is that when you come up with an idea, let it cook, try to solve your own problem. Don't launch it if you don't want to do it for long term. And then the third is do something you're personally passionate about. So what, based on your personal experience and the experience of your clients, can you give us a framework on how to ideate in Web3 space?
Mhm. Okay, sure. Um, Before that, I'd like to also mention about a few products that we've worked on. And the reason I'm telling you this is to just build the ground for what I'm about to tell you. If you've heard about Myco, it was previously named as My Content. It's currently a leading watch to earn platform in Web3 with over 10 million downloads.
Wow.
The founder is based in UAE, and approximately 3 years back, when he started off with his MVP, it was my content at that time, and his basic idea was to create a decentralized Netflix model where you incentivize viewers on watching. Now, this was back in the time when Watch to Earn was not popular. He had his roots in marketing, and that's about it. He knew what to market, what sort of content people consume, and that's it. Nothing about blockchain, nothing about crypto, nothing about working on incentivization models. He just knew his market right and what he wanted to offer. That's it. So now, reflecting back after 3 years, now Myco has 10 million users. You
Wow.
just think of it, and they're not even focused on their token now. They're leading the UAE market now. A lot of great partnerships. They're signing in retail partners now for their advertisement model, and things worked in perfectly. So at the time, if I asked the founder Masoom, "Did you really have all that going into your mind?" He pepped me right away. He said, "No, I knew what they wanted, and I knew the distribution channel I wanted to use. That was blockchain. That's it. With time, you do experiment and you get it to the right path." So starting off, first thing is I like to call it protocol market fit. So you've all heard of
Product.
product market fit. Now we're going to talk about protocol market fit. So what does
Is
protocol
is
market
is
fit
is
talk
is
about?
is, is this a term you coined?
Yeah, we're currently working on it.
Very nice.
So So this is after having worked on more than 40 applications. 20 of them we consulted for token engineering. The system design is done by us. Some are infrastructure level, some are application level. And then after having audited more than 90 protocols in terms of smart contract audits and blockchain audits, we've understood what protocol market fit looks like. So we're showing you a glimpse of it. The first and foremost thing is your protocol solution and value prop. That's simple. So assessing the value prop includes addressing the specific pain points, inefficiencies related to your intended use case, and it also considers tangible benefits that users drive while utilizing your protocol, such as increase efficiency, reduce cost, or let's say improve transparency. Just improving transparency can also be your value prop. As simple as that. Now moving on. So now we're talking about one is a tokenless economy, one is a token economy. So if we introduce token into your system, we're talking about a couple things. First is token utility. What is the inherent uh, value for your token? Where does it drive its token value from? Not speculations, because as Muslims, that's haram for us. So it should be really backed by some utility that they hold, maybe a use case, some discount coupon that your token enables them. The second thing is economic incentives. So you need to see how you incentivize participants who are working in your system, right? Because there's no Facebook or Google paying me anymore. It's users who are paying service or commodity providers, right? The third thing is token distribution. So while you're at it and you're thinking of the rosy picture that everyone has painted in your mind that you're going to raise $5 million out of it, at that time your token allocation really defines whether your token is going towards a death spiral. Because this is also a trade-off of this market, that if there is your project has a token, the maybe your product is doing phenomenal. But if your token is in a death spiral, everyone would assume that it's not doing good, and they'd simply back off from it, because that is the first instance why anyone comes to your platform, is either you're giving them airdrops, or the token has good speculation, so you're saying it's going up north in the next 5 to 6 months or an year. So the distribution really matters, how you give it out to your retail investors, your institutional investors, your private sale investors, the angel ones. How do you incentivize your community? So if they're bound to sell it off the moment they receive it, you're in for a lot of trouble. So that is something. It's also known as, so one thing, Tala, that I'd like to clear out in this call only. There's a difference between tokenomics design and tokenomics. Usually, people use it interchangeably. That token supply, token demand, working on the distribution schedule. That is tokenomics. That is a subpart of tokenomics known as tokenomics. The main thing that we're talking about is working on the liquidity provision, liquidity analysis, the token utility, working on your DAO governance, the system design, in fact, the participants, how would the system interact with each other. This comes under the umbrella of tokenomics. So that's about it. The next thing is community and market adoption
Okay, so
strategy.
so
So
we'll
you,
we'll we'll we'll
yeah,
we'll, we'll, we'll stop here just so we can
okay,
summarize what you have discussed. So
okay,
what we are trying to discuss is how can founders, I mean, we discussed like how they can get into the space, right? So that was clear, that was established. Now
okay.
once they get into the space, how do they choose an idea? Because we stopped like once figure out an idea to work on. Now that's what we were discussing. So far you have mentioned is that, if you can summarize what you have mentioned so far, like what is the framework? So the first one was your value prop, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. The second one
yeah, you're
was
not wrong.
so once you have
The
figured out
token
your value
utility.
prop, token utility,
You work on your token utility.
but before that you have to figure out either you want to go with token or without token. Now can you quickly tell
Yeah.
us, because I personally advise, and then the project where don't launch a token if you don't want to, right? So what's your thought on that? Should a project have a token or not? Because one thing that you mentioned right now, that once you have a token, the sentiment of your project gets attacked to the chart. So even if
Yeah.
you're building a really great product, if your charts are going down, the community will FUD you, and this is a big problem, that you have a pressure
Yeah.
of the community, you have the pressure of investors, and you can't really build the product that you were doing. So
Yeah.
we'll take a pause here. Should people launch a coin or not? Is there a simple answer to that, or
That
there's no
that
simple answer to that?
yeah. I'd like to simplify it here. It really boils down to your value prop. So if your product offers something that can operate without introducing a token, you're good to go. But let's say to this date, the largest user base we can see in the market is of MetaMask, but MetaMask doesn't have a token yet, still yet. Similarly, if your product, your value prop, or your business model operates on the fact of how people interact with each other using a token, then your token is bound to come. This is also pegged to the fact that if you don't have enough funds to bootstrap your project, this is how usually founders end up launching a token which was really not needed. Is because they just want to raise funds for their product building early in their cycle, and they're like, we're going to launch a token. Once we get the funds, now we're going to think about what to build. And that's a major dilemma in the market right now.
Yeah.
So if your value prop is clear, you're good to go. You don't need a
Okay.
token.
Got it. So mainly, if a founder is deciding to work on a product and he is at the stage where he's deciding I want to launch token or not, the first thing is that, okay, do you want to raise money? Yes, then you can launch a token. Second was that if your app, I think you gave a really good example of MetaMask. We have other examples like um, OpenSea and so many other protocols that don't have the
Yeah.
token yet. But if within your app transactions are taking place, then it's best to have your own token instead of letting them trade another token. So is that right? Cool. Okay. So once you have defined your value prop, once you have decided whether you need to have a token or not, then you decide your tokenomics. Then what's the next step after that? Deciding an idea.
Then you work on your community building.
Community is
So
a very big word in Web3. Everyone is like community. Tell us, what is community, and why is it important? Because we have seen in Web2 that people have built unicorns without a community. But why in Web3 do we need a community? I'll give my answer later, but I
uh,
want to hear your answer.
okay.
Okay.
So I think it really boils down to the fact that Web 2 was read and write, Web 3 is read, write, and own. Similarly, in Web 3, your consumers have also they're owning your brand or your product through the tokens that they hold. So A is simply your consumers are also your advocates. So you need community for that reason. The second thing is when you talk about such a nascent industry such as Web 3, which is developing, you need someone or other people to hold your hand while the ride is rough, to tell you it's going to be all right. So as humans, we always have that sense of validation that we're seeking from people around us, and that herd mentality, or people who are trying to support any XYZ product need to communicate with each other. A to keep that psychological like psychology straight, you need to not feel alone or lost in this journey. And B, it also boils down to the fact that this is an open system and open participation is very much appreciated. So with founders, with the three founders, they need to, while finding their protocol market fit, they constantly need to have validation or feedback coming in there from their community to help them derive what direction they now need to take. So that is why the sense of community building and constantly being in your community, talking to them helps you build the right product just beyond experimentation.
I have a question here. So, and this can be an advice for founders, right? Because founders, in their nature, are like they don't listen to anyone. They have so much faith in themselves, just like you said, right? You're a risk taker, and many people can resonate with that. So, when a founder is working in Web3, till what extent should they listen to their community, and then till what extent should they have faith in their own understanding, their own vision and belief? How can they find the right balance? Because this is a very big question. Should I have go with my what my gut says, or should I go with what my community says?
It really depends on how well you build your community. So to be honest, I've seen communities that are active 24/7, but there are close to zero people with actual opinions and product knowledge or Web3 knowledge talking in that community. So it's really towards quality versus quantity. If you understand your community is full of people who understand the industry and their feedbacks are really well informed, they're not dis or misinformed, you ought to listen to them. But there's an extent to it, right? Uh, I've seen a lot of experienced traders, founders getting into that spiral we call as FUD. So if they're just trying to, and I'm talking about traders, founders who've been in the industry since 10, 15 years, they, 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 they can't understand how to react to this changing narrative. The token price is fluctuating. And at one point of time, we've seen people talking all about AI. The very next day, we're talking about sequencers. The very next day, we're talking about data availability layers. So every project is being launched on the DA layer. So as a founder, you are the one who really drives or steers the product vision. You can pay heed to what directions other products or founders are taking or your community is saying, but there's a basic founder instinct that helps you cut through the noise naturally. And I think that doesn't come in with books. It just comes in with how well your thought process is and how mentally strong you are. So as simple as that.
Very amazing, very interesting. Yeah, for me, so when I got into this space, I started reading a lot because that's what I do, right? I absorb as much as I can. And one thing that I came across was why it's an article and a talk by Chris Dixon, the guy who leads
Okay, yeah.
A16Z's
Yes.
crypto division, and he launched a book as well recently. I can't recall the, but it was amazing. But he gave me an analogy was that when the networks were built in Web 2, like Facebook, Google, Yahoo, they were inherently centralized in their nature, which means that it followed an S curve, right? Which means that the founders would do everything to get the users onto their platform, right? They'll pay them, they'll incentivize them. But once they are on the platform, they would start extracting value. So that because and then the value becomes at the center. So even if the people that are using Facebook to, right, they don't know that their data is being sold, and then these guys are making money from them, and that's the very common business model. But Web3 changes that, which means that the value can go back to the edges of the network. So I think, for example, Uniswap is like when Uniswap became successful, the people that were part of the community and they were holding the tokens, who were early supporters, got they made life-changing money. One of the guy we work with, he started with one Uniswap airdrop, and now he has his own protocol that he's building. So for me, the community is that you can support a network since the beginning of it by either holding a token, a coin, or NFT, and then once it becomes big, you get to take a part of that success, which wasn't possible in Web2. So that is like more of a community for me. But I agree to your points as well, right? It's a lonely journey, so you need someone to support you. You need validation and so on. Amazing. So going back, value prop, token or no token. uh Remind me, what was the next step?
Uh, the first one was value prop. Second was one was token or no token. And the third thing was obviously your market adoption strategy and your community building. So I think
Got it.
we've talked a lot about it.
So based
Yeah,
on this, you can decide whether I want to work on this idea or not, right?
yeah.
Cool. Okay, once they have done that, then they come to you. So now tell us, what do you guys actually do? Like, what is BlockApex?
Okay. So BlockApex is basically a security first blockchain consulting firm. The reason we say security first, it's also our journey. We started off, my other co-founders, two of them have their background. One has in hardware engineering, and the other has in software engineering. So both of them started off with development, and after 5 years, they're older than me. They got into cybersecurity. So we started off as a smart contract audit company, and later down, we've also audited some popular protocols such as Terra Luna,
Oh
Mars,
wow! Oh wow!
Corona, Cosmos SDK, and a few others. So at that time, we put a fortune into Terra Luna, and when
We can
we
do
all
a
know
whole
what
sep.
happened,
We can do a whole separate
yeah,
podcast on that because I lost money on that.
we lost a fortune. But at that time, once we started doing research and what went wrong, we realized that economic vectors are very underplayed when you talk about any protocol. And that is where our token engineering or tokenomics design service came into being. So it's not just your code security, it's also your economic security that needs to be in place. So we, after an year-long research, we had people. So if we're smartest in the room, we don't change the room. We bring somebody in the room. So we joined hands with a lot of active researchers, some data scientists, some DeFi strategists, and we started offering tokenomics design, token engineering as a service. Then once we had a good clientele and we understood what service market looks like, we understood that implementation, the devil lies in the implementation details. So having been audited so many systems and then having been engineered so many systems, it's rightfully so that we also implement it. So we started building products for the clients that we used to service for token engineering work for. So we soon realized that even though our model is excellent, if the developer screws up in the implementation, or the UI UX designer screws up in understanding what these agents and how should they visually interact, your product is screwed over. So every step is very crucial. So we felt like they're not doing it well, let's do it ourselves. And to this date, we then started a team of software developers, and now we're at a headcount of 80. So the reason
Wow.
we call ourselves security first blockchain consultation firm is because at every step we try to model either the economic framework, the code that we're working on, or basically the idea that how, as hackers, we can compromise the system. So if we can, somebody sitting in let's say Europe or Lithuania can compromise this too. So we have to make it very robust and presentable in the market so that once we throw it out, nobody can compromise it. So that is why we say a security first blockchain consulting firm, and we abide by it.
Very nice. So I want to start from the beginning. So you mentioned that you had an entrepreneurial background. You had a services company. and then you found this thing called Bitcoin. Then you saw the validation from Facebook. Then you had joined friends hands with these two guys who were in security, and then you started servicing. My first question is, why service? Why start with service? I mean, because some people don't really understand this when they ask me, right? You have these skills, you can build your own products. Why work for someone else? So my question is, why did you start with services, and then what can people learn that how lucrative services can be in learning, obviously, and generating revenue? And I think that's the best way, right? You're testing ideas without running out of money like the startup founders do. So tell us, like, why did you personally choose service, and the other founders who want to explore Web3, how they can, because again, right now I can tell you 10 services that are lacking in Web3. We need good lawyers, we need good writers, we need so many services out there. So tell us, like, why did you do it, and what framework can other people who necessarily don't want to build their own product but have skills that they can uh, use in this market?
So just to answer this question, Tala, we're short on time as well. I'd keep it really simple, plain and simple. We, as Web3 founders, understood that we have a knack for uh, listening. So, me personally, I enjoy listening to different ideas, different opinions, and translate them into products that are usable. As for my other two founders, one has worked in two successful startups. In one, he was a co-founder, and in the other one, he was working as merely an employee. We've struggled at the start of our journey. We've struggled with keeping the cash flows positive because while working on services or trying to build something in house, you need a constant influx of money to basically keep your expenses running, right? So for that very reason, we started offering service, and at that time, our idea was to also work in a product in parallel. But with time, as the influx of projects started coming in, we started enjoying this model more rather than the one that gives you more equity and say on the table. So if I were to just uh, reverse your question and ask it to myself, that why a service and not a product, is because the ones who are working on a product, what features do they have? They want to create an impact in the market. Maybe they want to earn a name for themselves. Maybe they want to earn shitload of money. Yes. So while working in the services sector, if I can get my hands on projects as impactful as the Cosmos SDK, or let's say Osmosis, or let's say something like Eclipse Pad, our current clientele has, we at once in time we consult no more than 5 to 6 clients, and each have a community of more than 100, 200. One has a community of over a million million members. So if they are creating the impact and we know we can aid them in the right manner, there's no need of creating a product where we have to go that through that journey all over again. The second thing, which a lot of marketers listening to this podcast will resonate with, it's not easy working in Web3 as a marketer, right? The narratives keep coming in. The product team doesn't really understand what's happening and why can't you get users on board. You fail to explain them that even after giving so much lucrative airdrops, nobody actually retained to the platform and they just bounced off. So one day we're talking about one narrative, the other day you're talking about the other narrative. So as uh, technologists, we understand how the space is operating, and rather than marrying just one idea, may it be, let's say, SocialFi, Deepin, RWA, AI, we get to work on the blockchain layer and taste all these use cases at the same time. And for us, that is more thrilling rather than building a product of our own. And secondly, just to sum it up, we the protocols that we partner up with, we take our compensation in terms of like obviously cash, and then in terms of their tokens, if it has a token, right? So we love having our skin in the game, and it's not that we've always made a profit out of it. We've also made huge losses out of it, but that's the thing about Web3. So being a services based company, if I have the right say in the product, being a tokenomics designer and system engineer, a developer, and a software auditor. I think that's enough what we need and not a product to build for ourselves for now.
Very amazing. I mean, that's a very good answer, and I think this helps the space move forward as well in one
Yeah,
way, where we are, we need more engineering talent to do that. Amazing.
yeah.
So, Mujtaba, a last question before we wrap up is: you've worked with a lot of founders, right? You mentioned, I think, how many founders you work with so far?
In total, around 150.
150. And out of 150, I can assure you that no, I can assume that not everyone succeeded, right? So
Yeah.
give us your insights, like few fun for the founders that are watching, what they should do and what they should not do.
Okay. So just to start off, the first thing that they can do everyone a favor is to start reading more. Get into those ugly white papers that are on your desk or loaded on your window, but you haven't gone through it. Now, this is one thing that I really love about the industry that I work in. People build on other people's idea. A paper that might be dead, a research paper issued back in 1980, 1990, or even a failed business model back in 2008 or 2009, might be lying somewhere. Once you need to go through it, dig down, understand what it says, and does anything exist in the market of this sort, how you can improve it, what you can offer on top of it, leveraging blockchain, and then believe it for once. Because with time, I've realized that product builders have started working in silos, and that has the major USP of blockchain based technologies or products was interoperability. Uh, because of these silos, you see layer twos, layer threes. I am seeing in the next 3 to 4 years, this would also become a challenge for products to operate with each other. So while you're at it, you're working on your XYZ idea, you need to also be aware of what is the tech stack that is more suited for your XYZ application. Because once you've taken some grant or launch on any XYZ blockchain user writing in any XYZ language, maybe Solidity, Rust, Mokoto, C++, it takes a long to turn back. So I'm not asking founders to be purely technical, know how to code, but they need to know how their their product idea interacts with the system and also the agents involved. And once they're mindful of that, they wouldn't be in our lingo delulu. They would actually know what they're building and what it offers to the market. So you need to be very headstrong, right? And the more they read, the better it gets because there's a lot of material out there in the market. So that's about it.
How can they differentiate between junk and value?
I think junk speaks for itself. If you have a knack for reading and you've read, I do read a lot. Some of things do not make sense to me at all, and after an year or 6 months, we do have those discussions in house. You can check it up on BlockApex as well. We have discussions of all sort where you might see Muslim and I end up disagreeing horribly. But eventually, when we're coming across some other idea, we're like, aha, okay, this is how this intertwines, right? So if you've been consuming the right material and papers, eventually you'd understand and things would start making sense to you. But don't follow shillers. If somebody's talking about incentives, crypto tokens, airdrops all the time, unfollow them. If somebody's talking about MEVs, if somebody's talking about dark pools, if somebody's talking about cryptography, pay heed to them. Read what they say, and Twitter is itself it has an abundance of idea. So and there are you react to it very quickly. So if you're active in the space and you're reading, let's say you're going through some live podcast of let's say the recent Ethereum upgrade, and somebody amongst the developers drops in an idea, hey, why don't people use the empty block space that is there in the market? And somebody says, okay, why don't I start working on it? And then you see people actually consuming it a day or two later. So Web3 gives you the power of stop reinventing the wheel. There are a lot of already produced code bases, open source in the market. All you need to do is know how you're going to use it. Building, leave it to us or Nalikes and the expert in the space, and you're good to go. Don't worry about the tech more.
Amazing, amazing. So this is what they should do: read more
Yeah,
and know what they are building. Right? Amazing.
yeah.
What they should not do, because people say that read success stories. I like to read failures because that's where you learn. So, what can founders avoid? Because in my experience,
Mhm.
people run out of money, people run out of patience, they run out of like there's so many examples. So it's mainly either they run out of money, either they run out of patience, or either they just pick up another idea. So what are the things that they can avoid to make sure that the thing that they are working on, they can succeed? Because being a founder is very
Okay,
hard, right? That's for sure. So again, if we can give some advice, that would be helpful so they can save time.
okay. So the first thing is they should not fall in love with their idea. Uh, because once fall in love with your idea, you stop paying heed to what other people are saying. Um, the second thing, if they've done their research right, I'd say fall in love with it, but again, be rational about it. The second thing is which I usually tell my founders, my partners, in fact, is don't try to overcomplicate stuff. So everything innovation comes with a base. If your MVP is supposed to be perfect the first time you deploy it on chain, it's not an MVP. So sell the design first and then sell the product is what I tell my founders, because a lot of times in retrospective, because we have a lot of say on the bill, right? And we're actively consulting the client. He says, no, stop it, just shut and do what I'm saying and it'll work fine. We're like, okay, if it's the last straw, we'll do that. In retrospective, he realizes there were a lot of things that he missed out just to make the product perfect. And now, if he tries to undo it, there's again a 6 months crushing period that you need to go through, which is eventually maybe the bull run, and you're missing out on it. So, don't go for the perfect product the first time. Just target one problem and try to solve it, and eventually you will scale it with time. So, the third thing is UI. This is simply a no-brainer. But as much as you keep telling it, the user experience and the user interface needs to be simple. If you want to show that you're a Web3 product, it doesn't have to have all the usability or the interface that Uniswap has copied. Because can I say it's the perfect example? No. Uh, the thing which has made Uniswap the well-renowned brand it is, there's a lot of institutional fund that is at the backside of it. There's a lot of liquidity. So is it the perfect UX? No, it isn't. Everyone's experimenting and finding the right mix. You need to simplify stuff for the user, because as much as signatures he has to make, as much as you want him to read about your product, he isn't simply interested. Keep your values simple and also the representation simple. He doesn't want to interact with 10 buttons at the same time. If on one click it gets the job done, that's good to go. So now you have smart wallets, account abstraction that you can use. Focus on that. Stop worrying about Uniswap, because now it's a huge application. If they try to make any changes, they're making changes to the life of 100 million users. If you try to change that, that's the beauty of being a startup and being low right now. You can make iterative changes quickly. So don't look at the bigger fishes. Find your own blue ocean.
Got it.
That's it.
So if you were to summarize, don't marry your idea,
Yeah.
focus on the user experience and keep it simple. And the third thing you mentioned was
The user interface,
right.
keeping the
This
user experience good. The second one was don't make it complex. So don't intertwine ideas. Don't try to get it perfect the first time.
got it.
And
So
that's
ship
about it. And the
fast.
last
Ship
thing, yeah,
yeah.
shift fast.
Ship fast. Yeah.
And just the last thing, don't try to fight off the regulators. You're not going to change the system overnight. Understand what your compliances are. If you don't understand it, ask us or somebody else to make you explain of the market you're trying to get in, and just abide by it. Because if you
Amazing.
try too hard, you'll break. Just work on your product more.
Amazing. Mujtaba, where can people learn more about you and BlockApex?
They can follow us on LinkedIn. It's Block, BLOCK, Apex as an APEX, or follow us on Twitter, which is the same handle, BlockApex.
Amazing. I'll
That's
add
about it.
all the link in the description. Thank you so much, Mujtaba, for coming on. With that, we'll wrap up the episode. I hope you found this conversation as insightful as I did. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Tala.